Xavier Ashcroft stood in his study, the anonymous email glowing on his laptop screen like a wound that wouldn't close. Photographs, timestamps, hotel receipts spanning 3 years. His wife, Serene, with another man, laughing, kissing, tangled in bedsheets that weren't theirs. His hands trembled as he scrolled through evidence of a betrayal so complete it had rewritten his entire marriage. But what destroyed him wasn't just Serene's infidelity. It was the text message thread he'd found on their daughter Noor's phone during dinner, accidentally left unlocked on the kitchen counter. "Dad can't know. We protect Mom no matter what. Liam's right. If he finds out, everything falls apart. Ilara, we're not children anymore. We keep this secret for the family." His children, his 24-year-old son, his 22-year-old daughter, his 19-year-old youngest, all of them had known. For months, perhaps years, they'd watched him live a lie while they conspired to keep him blind. That night, Xavier called a family meeting in the drawing room of their Knightsbridge estate. Serene sat composed on the leather sofa, her beauty still sharp as a blade. The 3 children stood near the fireplace, confusion flickering across their faces. "I know everything," Xavier said quietly, his voice like stone grinding against stone. "About the affair, about all of you hiding it from me." Serene's composure cracked. Noor's eyes filled with tears. Liam stepped forward, hands raised. "Dad, please, let us explain." "Explain what?" Xavier's voice rose, years of suppressed rage finally erupting. "Explain how my own children looked me in the eye every day while protecting the woman who made a mockery of our marriage? Explain how you chose her betrayal over my truth." Ilara sobbed. "We were scared. We didn't want the family to break." "The family?" Xavier laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "There is no family. There never was. Just lies built on lies, with all of you as architects." He reached into his jacket and pulled out 4 envelopes, placing them on the mahogany table with ceremonial finality. "DNA test kits, all of you, tomorrow morning." Serene went white. "Xavier, they're your children." "Are they?" His eyes were empty, hollowed out by betrayal. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick with the weight of a family dying in real time. The DNA results arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. Xavier sat alone in his study, the sealed envelope heavy in his hands. When he finally tore it open, the words confirmed what blood could prove, but hearts could not. Liam, Noor, and Ilara were biologically his. But the knowledge changed nothing. He'd already rewritten his will, removing all 3 children and establishing a charitable trust. He'd already instructed his solicitor to prepare eviction notices. In the 48 hours since that devastating family meeting, something fundamental had broken inside Xavier Ashcroft, something that biological proof couldn't repair. "You can't do this," Serene pleaded when he handed her the divorce papers. "They're your children. They made a mistake." "A mistake?" Xavier's voice was ice. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This was a calculated conspiracy to keep me living in ignorance while you destroyed everything we built." He turned to his children, who stood clustered together like refugees in what had once been their home. "You have 2 weeks to find other accommodations. Your trust funds are dissolved, your allowances are terminated. Whatever you think you're owed because of blood, it died the moment you chose loyalty to her betrayal over honesty with me." Liam's jaw tightened. "So that's it? Years of being your son mean nothing?" "Being my son meant something when I believed sons told their fathers the truth. You're strangers to me now." Noor stepped forward, mascara streaking her face. "Dad, please. We were manipulated. Mom said if we told you, you'd leave and we'd lose everything. We were protecting what little family we thought we could save." "By sacrificing me?" Xavier's composure finally shattered.
By watching me kiss her goodnight while knowing she'd been in another man's bed that afternoon? By letting me plan anniversaries and speak about trust and partnership while you all knew it was a performance? He walked to the window, back rigid. I'm selling this house, I'm leaving London, and I'm doing it alone. You're adults now. Figure out your own lives, because you're no longer part of mine. The children left that afternoon, suitcases packed, faces hollow with disbelief. Serene moved into a hotel, her protests falling on ears that had finally closed. The Ashcroft estate, once filled with laughter and the illusion of love, became a mausoleum. Within 3 months, everything was sold. Xavier donated most of the proceeds to cancer research, his late mother's cause, keeping only enough to start over. He moved to a coastal village in Cornwall, renting a small stone cottage overlooking the sea, and began the slow, painful work of forgetting he'd ever been a husband or father.
18 months later, Xavier had built a life of careful solitude. He volunteered at the local maritime museum, took long walks along wind-swept beaches, and spoke to almost no one beyond polite necessities. His beard had grown silver at the edges, his eyes perpetually distant, as though always looking at something just beyond the horizon. It was at the community center's charity fundraiser that he first saw Amaya Vale. She stood near the refreshment table, wearing a simple green dress that somehow made her seem part of the landscape itself, earthy, grounded, real. Her dark hair was pulled into a practical braid, and she was speaking with animated warmth to an elderly volunteer, her laughter genuine and unguarded. Something about her stillness called to him. "You're staring," said Gerald, the museum curator and Xavier's closest approximation to a friend. "That's Amaya. She runs humanitarian projects in East Africa, home for a few months visiting her mum." Xavier turned away, not interested. But Gerald was already waving her over. "Amaya, come meet our newest volunteer. Xavier's been cataloging our ship models with the dedication of a monk." She approached with an easy smile, extending her hand. "A monk, is it? Do you also take vows of silence, or are you allowed conversation?" Her directness surprised him into almost smiling. "Conversation is permitted, in small, carefully rationed doses." "Perfect. I prefer quality over quantity anyway." Her handshake was firm. Her eyes, deep brown and unnervingly perceptive, held his a moment longer than necessary. "What brought you to Cornwall, Xavier?" "Escape," he said before he could stop himself. Instead of prying, she simply nodded. "The sea's good for that. It doesn't ask questions, just keeps moving forward." Over the following weeks, they kept running into each other. At the farmer's market, on coastal walking paths, at the small bookshop in the village center. Conversations stretched from minutes to hours. Amaya told him about wells she'd helped dig in Tanzania, schools built from donated materials, children whose faces lit up at the simple gift of clean water. "Why do you do it?" Xavier asked one afternoon, as they sat on a bench overlooking the cliffs, sharing fish and chips from the harbor shop. "Because love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day, to show up, to see people's worth when they can't see it themselves, to believe that broken things can be made whole again." Her words struck something deep in his chest. "And if the broken things don't want to be whole?" She looked at him then, truly looked. "Then maybe they're not actually broken. Maybe they're just afraid that being whole means being hurt again." The intimacy of her understanding made him pull back. "I should go." But as he walked away, he realized his heart was pounding, not with fear, but with something he'd thought long dead: hope. It happened on a storm-lashed night 3 months after they'd met. Xavier had invited Amaya to his cottage for dinner, a simple meal of roasted chicken and vegetables, and the rain had turned torrential, making the coastal road treacherous. "You should stay," he said, looking out at the sheets of water pounding the windows. "The guest house is closed for renovations. I have a spare room." Amaya smiled knowingly. Always the gentleman.
They talked late into the night, the fireplace crackling, wine glasses refilled, walls gradually lowering. Xavier found himself telling her everything: the affair, the betrayal, the children who'd chosen silence, his exile from the life he'd built. "And you haven't spoken to them since?" Amaya asked gently. "What would I say? Thank you for lying to me?" "Maybe I understand you were afraid." She set down her glass. "Xavier, I'm not defending what they did, but fear makes people do terrible things. Your children were caught between two parents and chose what they thought was survival. It was wrong, but it was also human. They watched me suffer. And they suffered watching you. There are no winners in betrayal, only different kinds of victims." She moved closer on the sofa. "You have every right to your anger, but you don't have to let it be the only thing you feel for the rest of your life." "What else is there?" His voice broke slightly. "I don't know how to trust anymore, how to believe in anything." Amaya reached up and touched his face, her palm warm against his bearded cheek. "You trust the sun to rise. You trust the tide to turn. You trust me right now, in this moment. Trust isn't one giant leap. It's 1,000 small steps." Xavier closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of wanting this, of wanting you, of hope being another kind of lie." "Then let me prove it's not." Amaya's voice was barely a whisper. "Let me show you what love looks like when it's real." She kissed him then, soft, searching, patient. Xavier hesitated for only a heartbeat before responding, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, years of loneliness and locked-away need pouring into it. They moved to his bedroom slowly, deliberately, each piece of clothing removed with the reverence of unwrapping something precious. When they finally came together, skin against skin beneath the covers, it wasn't rushed or desperate. It was healing made physical, gentle exploration, whispered reassurances, the gradual rebuilding of faith in another person's touch. Afterward, Amaya traced patterns on his chest, her head resting in the hollow of his shoulder. "This doesn't fix everything," she said quietly. "I know. But it's a beginning." Xavier kissed her forehead, feeling something shift inside him, a door long rusted shut finally creaking open. "Yes," he whispered into the darkness. "It is."
6 months later, Xavier received a letter. The return address was London, the handwriting Noor's. "Dad, I don't expect you to read this, but I need to say it anyway. We were wrong, so completely, terribly wrong. We've spent every day since you left understanding exactly how much we hurt you. Mom manipulated us, but that's not an excuse. We were adults. We should have been brave enough to tell you the truth. We chose comfort over courage, and we destroyed you in the process. Liam started therapy. Ilaris finishing university on scholarships she earned herself. I'm working at a women's shelter, trying to understand how to help people caught between impossible choices. We don't want your money. We don't want your forgiveness, because we know we don't deserve it. But if there's ever a day you want to know your children again, not as we were, but as who we're trying to become, we'll be here. Your daughter, Noor." Xavier read the letter 3 times, hands shaking. Amaya sat beside him on the cottage porch, her presence steadying. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to burn it. Part of me—" He trailed off. "Part of you still loves them," Amaya finished gently. "Love doesn't die just because it's been hurt. It just goes underground, waiting to see if it's safe to bloom again." "What if I can't forgive them?" "Then don't. But maybe you can start with something smaller. Maybe you can just listen." It took Xavier 3 weeks to compose a response. It was brief, cautious, but it was contact. "I'm not ready for a reunion, but I'm willing to talk. One conversation, no promises beyond that." They met at a neutral cafe in Exeter. Xavian, Liam, Noor, and Ilara. The children looked older, worn by consequence and growth. The conversation was stilted at first, then raw, tears flowing freely as they finally spoke truths too long delayed. "We thought we were protecting the family," Liam said, voice breaking, "but we destroyed the one person who actually held it together." "I needed you to protect me," Xavian replied, his own eyes wet. "Not your mother, not the illusion, me. We know, and we'll spend the rest of our lives proving we understand that now." It wasn't reconciliation yet, but it was a beginning. Therapy sessions, gradual rebuilding. Xavian didn't restore their inheritance, but he started answering phone calls, then meeting for coffee, then slowly letting them back into the corners of his heart that had sealed themselves shut. Amaya was there through all of it, never pushing, always supporting. On the day Xavian finally introduced her to his children as someone very important to me, he felt the last piece of his shattered self click back into place. That night, as they lay together in their cottage now, as Amaya had moved in permanently, he whispered into her hair, "You saved me." "No," she corrected softly, her hand finding his. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you were worth saving." Outside, the sea rolled eternal against the shore. Inside, a man who'd lost everything learned that sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with passion, but with the courage to heal and the grace to let yourself be loved again, even after betrayal has tried to convince you that love itself is the lie. Family, Xavian learned, isn't just blood. It's truth, it's choice, and sometimes it's the hard redemptive work of forgiving not because you've forgotten, but because you finally remembered that love, real love, is always worth the risk.